Why did the Jedi hate Anakin's second lightsaber? After losing his first lightsaber on Geonosis, Anakin was forced to construct a new weapon. Taking some inspiration from his first saber, his new weapon was designed to complement his obsession with lightsaber dueling. He designed the new hilt to be both heavier and wider, so it could allow him to dominate with more powerful strikes. Since the Clone Wars had just begun, Anakin knew he would be on the front lines a lot, so this lightsaber was perfect for his new role as a general. Unfortunately though, this was the complete opposite of what the Jedi stood for. The Jedi used their weapons for peace and justice, not for attacking, which made Anakin's new lightsaber extremely unorthodox compared to the normal Jedi tradition. However, little did the Jedi know that this iconic lightsaber would eventually be known as the Youngling Slayer 9000. Why did Anakin care so much about R2-D2? Although we all know that Anakin considered R2 to be almost like a friend, have you ever wondered as to why? Well, shortly after the events of Episode 2, Anakin was granted the rank of Jedi Knight. To celebrate this, Padme decided to surprise him by gifting him R2-D2. Anakin always knew of R2 because he saw him around. But when Padme gave him the droid, she told him that R2 wasn't really a gift, but instead a friend. Because of this, Anakin cherished his new friend, and over time, the two developed a strong bond. Why did Anakin try to jump over Obi-Wan? Although we know that Anakin's defeat came from him trying to jump over Obi-Wan Kenobi, have you ever wondered as to why he did this? Well, there's actually an explanation for this. Ever since Anakin was a young Padawan, he was always fascinated by how Obi-Wan defeated Darth Maul on Naboo. He would spend a lot of his time obsessing over their duel and asking Obi-Wan specifics about what happened. At one point, he even programmed his training droid to look identical to Darth Maul himself. So when the time came, Anakin tried to use the same move that his master used to defeat the Sith Lord all those years ago. This is why Obi-Wan told him not to try it. He was aware of Anakin's arrogance and sensed what he was going to try to perform. In the end, Obi-Wan didn't underestimate Anakin's power, but instead it was Anakin to underestimate him. Why did Anakin think that Padme was cheating on him? Although both Anakin and Padme were deeply in love, did you know that Anakin was actually afraid that she was cheating on him? Well, in an off-screen moment in Revenge of the Sith, Anakin was speaking with Palpatine when all of a sudden, Palpatine broke the news to him. He told him that there were rumors going around that Obi-Wan was seen leaving Padme's apartment earlier and that the two of them had been spending a lot of time together. After hearing this, Anakin was filled with rage and was heartbroken that Padme could even do that to him. Although he eventually found out that this rumor was a lie, this only proves how manipulative Palpatine truly was. Who was Anakin's father? One question that's commonly asked is who the father was of Anakin Skywalker, considering that all we know was that he was conceived by the Force. Well, as confusing as it may seem, there is one explanation that actually answers this. 10 years prior to the events of Episode 1, Darth Plagueis and his apprentice Darth Sidious performed an experiment to try and manipulate the Force to create life by using the dark side. This experiment was unsuccessful, leading to Plagueis to consider their attempt as a failure. However, little would they know, the Force would retaliate against what they tried to just perform. As a result, the Force then decided to create Anakin Skywalker. Anakin's father was not a person, but instead it was a reaction from the Force itself. How did Anakin almost kill Mace Windu? Although we all know that both Anakin and Mace Windu had an unusual relationship, did you know that Anakin wanted to kill him at one point? Well, when Anakin was denied Master, his thoughts were way darker than what we only saw in the film. After Windu told him to take a seat, Anakin was tempted to take his seat instead, by killing him in that very moment. In his eyes, he was convinced that Windu was jealous of him, because before he came along, Windu was the youngest to ever join the Jedi Council. However, after much thought, Anakin calmed himself down and ended up feeling embarrassed. Why did the clone troopers love Anakin so much? Although we all know that Anakin had a close relationship with his clone troopers, did you know there's actually a reason to why they loved him so much? Well, unlike the other Jedi, Anakin never asked his men to take a risk he wouldn't have been willing to take on himself. When him and his clones traveled to unknown planets, Anakin would never send his troopers down to the surface without him there with them, as he always wanted to make sure that they were safe from danger. This was a strict rule he enforced when the Clone Wars started, because he didn't see the clones as just numbers, but instead he valued them as people and some even as friends. Because of this, the clones appreciated Anakin's loyalty to them, and in return they were motivated to serve him. What happened when Anakin was bullied as a young Padawan? During his early years as a Jedi, Anakin was seen as an outcast, mainly because he was a slave, and he joined the Jedi Order at such a late age. At one point during his training, he overheard two other Padawans speaking about him behind his back. They mentioned that he was just a slave, and because of his emotions, he would never make a good Jedi. After hearing this, Anakin lashed out and used the Force to lift their lightsabers in the air, asking them what emotions they felt now. Obi-Wan, who saw this, quickly jumped down and separated their fight, as he then made Anakin apologize to them. Although the fight was quickly over, Palpatine witnessed the entire thing. Why didn't Anakin ever leave the Jedi Order? Although we all know that Anakin was extremely frustrated throughout his years as a Jedi, have you ever wondered why he never just left like Ahsoka did? Well, crazy enough, there's actually a reason for this. Very similar to Ahsoka, he also lost faith in the Jedi, and he believed that they changed their ways over the years. But unfortunately for Anakin, he was terrified to leave. In his eyes, he wasn't strong enough to find the courage to walk away, and he also believed that he owed them everything. Regardless of what he felt about the Jedi, they rescued him when he was just a slave, and gave him a home, which was something that Anakin was forever grateful for. He ultimately believed that if he left the Jedi Order, he would have been making a terrible mistake. Why was Anakin terrified after he killed Count Dooku? Although we all know that Anakin sliced off Dooku's head in Revenge of the Sith, did you know that he was absolutely horrified after this? Well, in an off-screen moment, he shared his true thoughts. In Anakin's eyes, he was convinced that because he did this, he was now a cold-blooded murderer. In a way, he didn't even know who he was in that moment, and the more he thought about it, the more he started to doubt his future with the Jedi. For years, he saw himself as a hero, a star pilot, and most of all, an honorable Jedi. But now, he felt like he could never be any of those things again, because of what he just did. Little did Anakin know, however, was that this was only one step closer in his path towards the dark side. What was the only thing that Anakin hated about Padme? Although both Anakin and Padme were deeply in love, there was one thing that he actually hated about her. As crazy as it sounds, Anakin hated it when Padme wore her senator outfit, and there's actually a reason as to why. In his eyes, she was always happy and smiling, but whenever she had to go do her senator duties, it was almost as if she was a completely different person. He believed that the sunlight in her eyes would completely disappear and she would just become emotionless. It frustrated Anakin so much that he even nicknamed this outfit her political look. Who were the only two people that Anakin told about him killing the Tusken Raiders? Although we all know that Anakin performed the Tusken Raider massacre moves, he did in fact share this moment with two different people. The first, of course, was no other than Padme, as we saw in episode 2. However, there was one more person. Unlike somebody like Obi-Wan or Yoda, Anakin chose to share this story with no other than Palpatine, but there's actually a reason as to why. Anakin believed that if he shared the story with Obi-Wan, he would have been banished from the Jedi Order, but with Palpatine, he knew his secret would be safe, and he wouldn't judge him for what he did. Little did he know though, this only impressed Palpatine, as it was his very first step towards the dark side. How did Anakin change Ahsoka's lightsabers to blue? In Season 7 of the Clone Wars, we see Anakin gift Ahsoka her lightsabers back, but have you ever wondered as to how he was able to change their color from green to blue? Well, there's actually an explanation for this by Dave Filoni himself. Filoni mentioned that unlike most Jedi who had their kyber crystals call out to them, Anakin did something a little bit different. Because he was so strong in the Force, he was actually able to alter the frequency of these green crystals, which then changed the color to blue. This just proves that even after Ahsoka left the Jedi Order, Anakin was always thinking about her. What was Anakin's Forbidden Force ability? Although Anakin was known as one of the most powerful Jedi throughout the entire Order, did you know he actually used a forbidden ability? Well, this ability was no other than Force Scream. Force Scream was mainly used by darkseid users and was summoned when the wielder would channel strong frustration, rage, or grief through the Force. This ability would then trigger shockwaves that could attack and even kill anybody that's nearby the user. One of the times we see Anakin use this was in the 2003 Clone Wars series after he defeated Asajj Ventress. As Ventress fell off the cliff, Anakin unleashed his rage, channeling his inner dark side by using Force Scream. Why did Anakin wish that Qui-Gon trained him instead of Obi-Wan? In an off-screen moment in Attack of the Clones, Anakin gave his true thoughts on Qui-Gon in a conversation with Padme. Anakin, who was extremely frustrated with Obi-Wan's teachings, mentioned that Obi-Wan was too bound by the rules of the Jedi Order and that he would never take any risk in his life. He then continued to say that unfortunately, Obi-Wan was nothing like his master, Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon, on the other hand, understood the need for independent thinking, and sometimes that was required in certain situations. He admired that Qui-Gon didn't just blindly follow the rules of the Council and actually took initiative to get results. Because of this, it makes us wonder what Anakin's future could have been if Qui-Gon never died. If you enjoyed this lore compilation about Anakin and you want to learn more about his best stories when he became Darth Vader, then make sure to click the video in the middle of the screen right here.